What's actually better, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Monster power trio of the Egyptian God cards or their GX counterpart, the Sacred Beasts? Well, let's find out in this first edition of the Versus series, a new segment on my channel where I take two archetypes and compare them through 5 categories to see which deck is better. The two decks today are both the Egyptian Gods and the Sacred Beasts, with the new support coming out for each archetype soon enough as of recording. With this in mind, both decks have converted to singular God/Beast decks rather than all three. The Sacred Beasts now focus on Hamon, specifically because of the powerful Cerulean Skyfire spell, enabling a good control strategy along with the amazing searchable field spell Fallen Paradise. While this is going on, the Egyptian Gods can now focus on Ra as an OTK strategy because of the new support from legendary duelist Rage of Ra, making a tribute summon of the Divine Beast much easier, more consistent, while also making your Ra have insanely large attack stats. The 5 categories I will be comparing them are as follows: consistency, power, versatility, protection, and grind game capabilities. And they will all be graded as a number from 1 to 5, with 1 being the bottom of the barrel, 3 being average, and 5 being a top tier aspect. These categories can be updated with feedback, but generally I think this is a good baseline to find out what each deck is capable of for episode 1, and to determine a better deck. With all of that in mind, welcome to the first edition of the Versus series, and let's start with round 1. If you enjoyed this content and want more of it, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and helps me at the same time. And also make sure to join my Discord server. I do playtesting sessions with people on my Discord server. And additionally, it's obviously an awesome community. The link is in the description. With that, let's begin. To start with the Egyptian Gods in this consistency category, I must say, wow. I'm surprised that this deck is consistent at being able to OTK. When it comes down to it, this deck can enable a tribute summon for Ra while increasing its attack stats to 7,900 if you're able to pay 7,900. This as well will double if you have Ancient Chant, or you can attack with any monster that has 100 attack to win the duel. If you focus your deck on consistency cards like Dangers, Desires, and others, this will also make the deck that much more consistent and able to get the job done, especially going second. Sometimes, however, you just don't draw that great. If you don't have multiple Dangers or Brick on God cards and can't get the appropriate cost for the tribute summons, then you essentially just lose, and that's clearly not a good thing. It's not impossible, however, for the deck to be able to play at all, and it's consistent enough to get a 3 out of 5 from me, being pretty average when it comes to consistency. For the Sacred Beasts, they have become shockingly consistent at putting 1 Sacred Beast on the field, which is enough to resolve the draw 2 effects on Fallen Paradise. The biggest problem, however, is putting more on the field on the first turn, as generally your deck's ceiling and power output isn't high enough to do so. You also won't ever be summoning the Sacred Beasts with their actual effects, but rather the effects of other monsters like Dark Summoning Beasts and Chaos Summoning Beasts. The biggest problem with their ceiling, however, is if they could put 2 Sacred Beasts on the field consistently, then there is the capability to have an in-theme skill drain through the Awakening of the Sacred Beasts. Unfortunately, this is not the case right now, but it's not necessary to be a decent deck, and it's good enough to win a game depending on what deck you're playing. There are also so many other starter cards in the deck you can play with numerous draw cards, making your deck that much more consistent. The ability to cheat out your win condition rather than having to tribute 3 with a card like Ra makes this deck's ability to stay consistent so much easier, and because of this, I'll be giving the deck a 4 out of 5 in consistency. You should always expect your opponent to put 1 beast on the field unless you hand trap them, which is something I'll discuss later. For now, however, Sacred Beasts is currently winning at 1-0. Next is the power section, and as stated in the consistency section, the Egyptian God deck can have problems getting the job done. But when it works incredibly, and you can push through big boards pretty quickly. It can, as stated prior, brick, but purely from a power perspective, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It's not overly insane, but for what it is, it's definitely above average. As for Sacred Beasts, the deck has significantly less power, which is especially seen through the lack of ability for them to put out more than behind one beast consistently. If they can put two beasts on the field, this changes things quickly, especially with a card like Awakening of the Sacred Beast as mentioned prior, being an in-theme searchable skill drain. This skill drain-like effect should not be ignored and can easily win games by itself, and when combined with the draw power and other disruption pieces, can claim matches altogether. Again though, we don't have this skill drain-like effect available because of the lack of power. There is one thing about this deck, however, that I do want to mention when it comes to its power. This deck consistently puts out a Link 2 with the Sacred Beast, and soon enough we'll be getting Red Eyes Dragoon, making Verte the perfect complementary Link to this archetype needed. I'm still going to leave the deck at a 3 out of 5, especially because Dragoon is better in other decks, but that shouldn't degrade how good it will be in Sacred Beast when it arrives. This round goes to the Egyptian God deck, putting the tally at 1-1. Next is versatility, and while the Egyptian Gods aren't versatile at all for going first, going second it can switch up the go second cards depending on the format, except Hand Trap, which the deck can't play because of the danger monsters that are required, which automatically hurts the versatility going second significantly, especially considering the context of the format we're in right now. When you are forced to go first as well, the best option is Egyptian God Slime, but that isn't even consistent in protecting yourself, especially when there are so many outs to it. In general, the biggest downfall of this deck is that it can't go first, hurting its versatility tremendously. The deck doesn't do anything to disrupt the opponent, and this lack of ability to put up disruption when the time calls for it is going to force my hand and put the versatility at a 2 out of 5. While going first there's no options except for Egyptian God Slime and maybe a rank 4, at least going second you can change some of the go second cards because the deck isn't too restrictive, giving it enough of a boost to not be at the bottom of the barrel, but at least close to it. As for the Sacred Beast, however, it's awkward for different reasons. See, while the deck with its small engine size and generic engine is capable of playing almost anything depending on what you need and can have options in the Link 2 pool, there are two big dilemmas for this deck's versatility. The first is the deck is very linear. You summon a Sacred Beast, potentially try to summon Verte into Dragoon as well if you can, draw 2 with Fallen Paradise, and pass. The problem is this strategy is 1, very easy to counter, and 2, you don't have much room to go other routes. This also ties into the next issue of resiliency. While the deck has ways of playing through hand traps and disruption like the 7 Spirit Gates Unleash and Call by the Grave, depending on your hand you can be forced to pass after one hand trap pretty quickly. Besides these two flaws, the deck is versatile enough for a 3 out of 5 rating, as it can still play around these cards and can have options depending on the hand, making it pretty average overall. Sacred Beasts are ahead once again at 2-1. Protection, as you could probably assume for what I've said earlier about the Egyptian God deck, is pretty lackluster, and honestly I felt as though I stated enough about the deck's protection problems in the versatility section. Because of this, I'm immediately going to give the deck a 2 out of 5. It's atrocious how badly this deck is unable to protect itself through the theme, and sure, if you get 2 level 4s you can make a rank 4 like Baguska or Dweller, but that's generally not enough to ensure your victory. At the very least, it can put up a rank 4 and the Egyptian God Slime, making it not the worst, but not good either. The Sacred Beasts are definitely better in this category than the Egyptian Gods. Fallen Paradise gives your Sacred Beast enough protection on the opponent's turn from targeting in card effects, and the deck has in-theme disruption through Cerulean Skyfire. There are problems like how Access Code Talker destroys the Sacred Beast strategy, and there are also other archetypes that have better forms of protection, but generally this is an average 3 out of 5 protection deck. While the Egyptian Gods are behind 3-1, ensuring the Sacred Beast's victory, let's see how close this actually was, with the last category being the grind game. If you couldn't tell, I've emphasized a large amount that the Egyptian Gods are a glass cannon, and you either win or lose on the first turn. Because of this, there should not be people expecting that they have a grind game, if at all. The only thing saving this deck from a 1 out of 5 is Egyptian God Slime. And even though I want to give them a 1 so badly, I can't ignore that, at least against control decks, if the control deck can't win that turn, then maybe the Egyptian God deck can pull a victory out of nowhere and survive another turn. But considering the state of the game, where if you play a control deck, they're probably going to snowball out of control, I doubt that will end up being the case. The Egyptian Gods get a 1.5 in this category. Finally, the Sacred Beasts are pretty average like I've stated prior. Their grind game is pretty good and can snowball if the opponent doesn't do anything. But generally speaking, the deck doesn't do anything special above other decks, and thus, I'll leave it at, once again, a solid 3 out of 5, making Sacred Beasts 100% the winner. In the end, neither deck is exceptional, with both decks truly being mediocre to average at best. The biggest difference in these decks, however, is that the Sacred Beasts have been given generally better support cards through the structure deck. Not having to still send 3 spells makes Hamon that much more consistent, and the same will go for the rest of the Sacred Beasts. And while the Raw deck has methods of getting the 3 tributes for Raw, it's nowhere near the same consistency as the Sacred Beasts have. Additionally, as of right now, Raw doesn't have in-theme disruption sources for the opponent's turn, making a Go second variant much more optimal, especially with all of the attack changing effects, also hurting its chances to win. But in general, as of right now, the Sacred Beasts are better than the Egyptian God cards, declaring them as the winner. Let me know your thoughts on this series in the comment section below. I'd love to get your feedback. Thank you guys so much for watching, and with that, I hope to see you soon.